Okay, we're on. I think we're good now. So, 4 questions to ask yourself before setting up your budget. So, first, to tell you a story. Over the years of budgeting, my husband and I have gotten in many heated arguments over the budget and not having enough to spend or spending too much here and blah, 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 blah. And we have learned our lesson, but I want to help you guys, so when you are creating a budget and working on your budget, I want to help save you and your spouse arguments, because then you will continue budgeting and saving money and using that money more wisely. So we came up with 4 questions to ask yourself and your spouse before creating that budget to help budgeting with you guys work together, work better for you. So the very first question to ask yourself is, am I committed for a budget to work? So am I committed to a budget? The first step in doing anything is actually wanting to do that and making that decision to build that budget, and that yes, you will try and work towards that. So that's the first question is is your spouse, significant other, are you both willing to work towards that budget and trying to keep it up and trying to use that budget to help you guys? The second question is, oh no, I put 2 of them together. The second question is your spouse committed to help? So it takes 2 to tango, but it takes 1 to kind of screw up a budget. Sometimes both. Sometimes it's a little bit from each side. So you really want to make sure you're both working together and sitting down and making that budget together, not just one of you. And I know my husband and I don't sit down and make the budget together. I make it and then I go over it with him and we make changes together, so he doesn't have to spend that time doing all the initial stuff. So the first question, are you committed to the budget? Second, is your spouse committed, so that you can work together to get that budget to work? And the third one is, are you responsible with money? So think about your past history, high school, when you got those paychecks, what did you do with them? My husband spent his all on very first weekend, and all of mine went straight into savings. So how responsible are you with money? I'm not saying that he wasted his money. He used it for stuff that he wanted. But you need to know if you're responsible, and you really need to be honest with yourself, because if not, then your budget's not going to work for you. And then you need to, the very fourth, sorry, I'm losing my track here. Okay, pause. Okay, so the third question is, are you responsible with money? Yes or no? And be honest with yourself, because if you're not responsible with money, then you need to allow yourself a little bit more leeway in your budget. Instead of trying to hit your budget goals 80 to 100% of the time, you might only be able to reach your budget goals 50 to 60% of the time, because you're really not all that responsible with your money. But as you work towards it each month, then you should be able to get better. And the fourth question is, are you a spender or are you a saver? And is your spouse a spender, or is your spouse a saver? Because that's going to help how you do your budget. Me, I'm a saver, so I tend to try to budget way too much money into savings and try to nitpick our other stuff to spend as little bit as we can, and we always end up going over. So realizing that you're a saver, you might need to up the budget a little bit more, or be more aware of how tight and nitpicky you are, and maybe look at that savings. Is that savings goal really doable compared to the rest of your budget? And then if you're a saver, that's a saver. If you're a spender, you might need to look at that budget and now allow yourself that leeway. So if you usually spend $500 on groceries and you think you can get by with $400, try cutting it down to $450 a month for groceries and seeing how that goes. If you like to save money, you typically put too much money into savings and you can't keep up with your bills. If you're a saver, you put too much, I'm getting so confused today, sorry. And if you're a saver, you put too much money into savings and not enough into spending for your bills. If you're a spender, you don't put enough into savings and you spend way too much money on your other stuff. So you need to look at what you guys are and really adjust that budget accordingly. And a budget is something that will change each month. Hopefully you can keep the ideal budget about the same, but I mean, we're expecting another baby, and so our budget's going to be changing because we're getting a new car and different insurance, and a lot of stuff changes throughout the life. So budget isn't something that you just set and go with, But you do need to really figure out what your connection is with money. If you and your spouse are willing to really work towards that budget, how responsible you are with money, and if you save it or spend it so you can adjust your budget accordingly. Sorry about all the confusion in it earlier. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Next week, we are going to talk about what are the top items I should budget. So some people aren't really quite sure what their priorities should be with budgeting and stuff, or what groups they really need a budget for or not. And so that's what we're going to go over next week on Wednesday, so be sure to join us, and I hope you guys have a great week.